Okay, so I am not in class today, obviously. So you guys are going to do a class period with me here. So first, our warm up. This is what I want you to do. I want you to answer these 3 questions, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. But I want you to pause. Okay? You're gonna pause me and do these 3 questions right now. No, I'm serious. Do these 3 questions right now. Don't try and get out of this. You have to. I will check later. Okay, pause me now. Okay, I'm coming back now. So, Leon Fessinger, cognitive dissonance. We did this. We looked at the $20 and the $1 that was given to the participants, right? They did the boring task. They had to convince the other person. They had cognitive dissonance when they had to convince someone of a task that was boring, even and say it was not boring, right? Think of something like this in your own life now. Tell me. Say it out loud. Okay, good. Now, the study we did in class with the 4 lines, right? It was fun, but it also showed how people will comply to what you tell them to do. Okay, here we go. We are going to move on here. We are going to today look at compliance and obedience today. So that was the part we did yesterday. And today, we are going to take a look at obedience. The man who is really famous when it comes to obedience is we're going to talk about today. So obedience is doing something because a legitimate authority figure asked us to do it. Less frequent than conformity or compliance, every person who possesses authority and power generally prefer to exert it through the velvet glove. So they don't try and do it often. We do these through requests rather than orders. So obedience is having as instructed, but not necessarily changing your opinion. So with obedience, we're not trying to change your opinions. That's all. Usually, it's response to an individual rather than a group pressure. Obedience is by direction, while conformity is being affected by observation. Right? We did that with our study. Right? With conformity, you were watching it. With obedience, it's something that someone's telling you to do. Why are people obedient? Well, we are obedient to such things as law enforcement, our parents typically, in the military. They're following direct orders of a legitimate authority is usually not a matter of debate. So when the police officer asks you to show your ID, you're going to show your ID. So the most famous is a man named Stanley Milgram. He looked at how obedience was used, and he has one of the most famous psychological experiments. There is some ethical concerns with this. So in his study of obedience, a person of power is going to tell another person basically to shock somebody else. So right here in this picture is the machine that they think is shocking the other person. So the participant in the study is the teacher. The confederate is the learner. So a confederate here means that they're part of the study. So they know what's going on. The teacher watches the learner being strapped into the chair. The learner expresses concern on his face over his heart condition. If the learner makes an error, the teacher has to shock him with a level of shock increasing to dangerous and deadly levels. As the level of shock increases, the teacher can hear the learner is in obvious pain. So a picture for you. The teacher is in another room with the experimenter. The shock panel has volts from 15 volts to 450 volts, which is quite a bit actually. And they're asked to give a higher level of shock every time the learner makes a mistake. This is the setup. So the teacher is in the right-hand corner, and then you have the experimenter is in the right-hand corner, then you have the teacher and the participant. The teacher and the learner. So these are the shock levels. So the learner protests more and more, but the shock increases every single time. The experimenter continues to request obedience even if the teacher is unsure. So this is some of the lines that actually came from it. So what I want you to do now is you're going to go under topics for AP Psychology, and under topics I want you to watch the Stanley Milgram obedience video. It's about 10 minutes long. Watch the whole thing and then come back to me. Okay, hopefully you watched that. So about 50% of the participants in that study, as the video said, were actually obedient to the experimenter, which is pretty shocking. It's a pretty shocking fact to think about that video and the fact that you have people who looking to bring this on a wider stage outside of a study or research. This can somewhat explain something like Nazi Germany and being told the power obedience can have actually on people in a position of authority. It's quite shocking, really, to think that this can happen to the 50% of the people that were involved in this. I think, think of outside what else this can affect is pretty unbelievable. So, some explanations for Milgram's results. An abnormal group of subjects? I don't think so. I don't think they're that abnormal at all. There was some pretty extreme distress in some of his subjects, though. They were very, they were pretty taken back by it and having to do this to other people. Although 84% said that they were glad to have participated, and less than 2% said they were sorry that they were sorry that they were participants in this. There are still ethical concerns with this study, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in this class. Okay, so the other thing that I'm going to have you guys do today is I want you to watch about 30 minutes of the Stanford Prison Experiment. It's online under topics. I want you to watch the whole entire thing. So it's only 30 minutes. It's a documentary about the Stanford Prison Experiments in terms of obedience. So this comes in the early 1970s, which was quite a bit after everything else that, after Milgram's study. The Milgram study came first, and I think this is an important thing for you guys to look at as well. So after you finish that, we'll be able to talk about both of these things. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed my first video of the year. Hope you still get out of this class what you need to today, and I will see you all on Tuesday when I get back to school.